we all have our unique abilities. And I have kids that are just graduated from college, and when you're in your 20s, a lot of it is trying to figure out what color's your rainbow? No, there's a book, what color's your parachute or something. What's your unique talents? Mm-hmm. Each of us has our unique talents. And I was a very good student. I went to Princeton University. I played football at Princeton.
Okay.
I was good with finance. I went into investment banking. I did that for 5 or so years. I then went to Harvard Business School. I've had these incredible educational experiences. I was good at school. My dad would tell you he barely got a diploma from the University of Georgia. They threw it in the window as he was driving by.
That's funny.
He's a street smart entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. So again, we all have our unique abilities, right? And often the most successful entrepreneurs are not the best. They're not A students. C students rule the world, right? So a lot of times what you learn in academic settings doesn't really serve you in the workplace. But I got out of Harvard Business School. I went back into investment banking, which is finance, quantitative, spreadsheets, and I was good at that. Mm-hmm. I also was good with people, but it was just sort of luck of the draw that in 2004 we had started Tarkenton Financial. I was kind of after the dot-com crash. I'd done some wealth management, and Dad said, "Why don't you come over here and get involved in what we're doing?" We were just starting. And 2003, 2004. So I'd always thought about investment banking. I didn't love working for big companies. I like smaller companies because I feel like you can make an impact, mm-hmm. and you can feel what's the impact. Your contributions are immediately felt. Mm-hmm. So I came here in 2004 as we were first starting. We probably had 30 or 40 advisors, and I got involved in all aspects of the business. And we had a lot of folks that were doing seminars, and we were doing marketing, and we had recruiting events and product, and I got to exercise a lot of different skills and find out what my true gifts were. Mm-hmm. And over the last 20 years, we've expanded now to, we have over 200 agents. We have a team here of 15 with Tarkenton Financial. We have 65 people in our various companies. And I look around now 20 years later, and I see, we have people that are accountants, payroll people. We got people that are creative, web designers. Everybody's got to find their thing. And so I think, honestly, so I got involved because we were starting this company. I think I have evolved into the role that I'm probably best suited in, which is leading and having a vision, mm-hmm. Being there to support my dad. There's no question that Dad is the leader of the company, but he needs people around. He talks about it all the time. You need good teammates. You don't put somebody at wide receiver who can't catch the ball. Yeah. So the important thing is to bring in a new employee, and we're always bringing new people, and try to put them in a position where they can succeed. And if it's not working, it's nothing worse than being in a role that you're not well suited for. Yeah, and exactly. You're beating your head against the wall. You hate going to work. And Dad always talks about at his age, he's not coming to work. He loves what he does. So fast forward to our advisors. We have independent advisors that some of them have started as independent, but many of them used to work in big brokerage firms, mm-hmm. big investment firms, and they decided for some reason to go out on their own. That in and of itself is a risk, and you've got to have a lot of self-belief to say, I can establish my own brand, I can rent my own office, I can do my own marketing, I can, that's a leap of faith. Mm-hmm. And so then we have to build a team there that can support them. But an advisor who works at Merrill Lynch or Wells Fargo or a big institutional, they have office space, brand name, phone, business cards. They have that. When you go independent, you've got to do it yourself. So that's a certain type of person who can do that. Some people do it and it doesn't work and they have to go back in-house. So now we've built this team here that supports those people that are independent. And some of it is just in day-to-day marketing. Some of it is in finding the right product. Some of it might be introducing life insurance. But here we are in this world now. One of the Dad's maxims is you have to reinvent yourself. Yeah. So what we were doing 20 years ago is very different from what we're doing today. The internet was in its early stages. Amazon had just started. There was no social media back then that I can recall. So now things change. The only constant is change in business, and now we're in an environment where people are not doing traditional dinner seminars as much as they did. They're doing more educational events, but people obviously need to have a brand online. We know that people are watching video more than they're reading text. So people are watching this video probably. If I sent you a 5-page white paper, people would be like, I don't have time to read it. So the other thing that's interesting for me, so I mentioned my grandfather was a preacher, and Dad's always said Dad's pulpit is business. And so he's always preaching the mission of business is to help people. There are no silver bullets. You have to reinvent yourself. Nothing takes the place of hard work, right? So I, in some ways, feel like I've become like an extension of his voice. So our top producer groups, they got to be top producers because they work hard, and they ask questions, and they leverage our team. They learn from their peers. One of Dad's maxims is people have to talk to people. I think one of the unique things about Tarkenton Financial is our advisors know each other, and they talk to each other, and they learn from each other. And my dad talked about when he was a quarterback, he talked to the other quarterbacks. I mean, he talked to Roger Staubach and Bob Greasy and Terry Bradshaw and all these guys that played when he was there. But for some reason in our industry, everybody gets real closed up. I'm gonna keep it to myself. I'm not gonna share my secrets. There are no secrets. The secret is execution, finding your niche, leveraging your unique talents, bringing in the right team around you. You know, you look at a successful Alabama, University of Georgia football, New England Patriots when they were good. It's how things come together. Any successful organization, Chick-fil-A, North Point Church, like it's a blending of the talents. How do you bring the right people together to serve? So anyway, fast forward, I started investment banking, all this academic background. Somehow I stumble into this business. 20 years later, I think I found my calling is to pull all these people together and to be, to some extent, I'm never going to be my dad. I mean, I wasn't a Hall of Fame quarterback, but I'm an extension of that brand and the legacy and what is it that we want Tarkenton Financial to stand for. Top of the charts is the mission of business is to help people. And then you've seen it enough, and our employees have seen it, that for our advisors, it is job number one. For our staff, is job number one is how can we help other people? And it's also the kind of people we've attracted, like Chris Barnes. You know, Chris will do whatever you need him to do. I mean, you need to start the dishwasher, empty the dishwasher, run somebody to the airport, help somebody with a marketing plan, find the right product. You need Saturday afternoon, Wednesday night. Like, that's kind of the culture we've created. And it's the kind of people we've attracted. You don't, if you have that kind of culture that the mission of business is to help people, you tend not to attract big egos. Because, people that are just so self-focused, that have such a, it's all about me, it becomes all about them. And how does this help me? How does this help me? And we're in an industry where there's a lot of people, and listen, everybody wants to make money. You got to make money. It's part of what you provide for your family. But Dad always says, if your mission is to help people, eventually it'll take care of itself. If your sole mission is to make $1, you're probably going to, and there are plenty of people in this industry, and in 20 years, we've had them. People whose sole objective was to make a buck. They're going to cut a corner. They're going to go back on their word. They're going to do something like that. Look at Larry Sasso. Look at Richard McGrath. Look at Chris Barnes. I think most of our team, I would say internally, our mission is to help people. So that's one of Dad's sermons. Sermon on the Mount from Fran is the mission of business to help people. So I view that my role is to kind of help take that down into our organization. And how do we filter that out? So
that's good.
Yeah, that's how I got here.
I want to go back and dig in a little bit. So you obviously uncovered a lot there, but I want to talk about one of the first things you said, which was discovering your gifts. And how do people go about discovering their own unique talents and abilities that they've been gifted with, and how do they leverage that in the marketplace?
Some of it, I think, is following what you naturally enjoy doing.
That's good.
And it's hard, I think, about even for like my kids, like my son Peter is really interested in politics. He loves reading about politics, talking about politics. And so things that you, as a young person, what do you naturally enjoy doing? Some people are naturally outgoing. They go to conferences. They want to meet people. They want to network. Other people are much more comfortable in their own environment. Maybe they're good with numbers. Maybe they did well in math. Another one of my children seems to do really well in science. He seems to be getting really good grades in science. It comes easier to him. Whereas reading novels in English may not. So I think it starts at a very young age, right? What do I enjoy doing? Mm-hmm. What am I naturally good at? Yep. Super hard when you're a young person to find a job that most people enjoy sports and video games and whatever, but okay, do I like being around people? Do I not? Do I want to be out? So some people couldn't stand being in an office. I want to be out. I want to be working on building homes or one of my son's friends did golf course landscape management. Like I want to be out. So that's the first thing is just listen to that inner voice. Yeah. What do I love to do? And then I think there's a certain amount of trial and error. Yeah. When you're a young person, you start out doing certain things, and oh, this was great. I was really good at it. I was getting promotions. I was doing well. I was getting positive reinforcement. And then sometimes it's just like, oh, this isn't going well. This is hard. It's taking me a long time. Why is this easier for other people? Those are just markers guiding you to what we ultimately all end up is. This is what I should be doing. So it's interesting, and I'll tell you, with I'm tied back to our financial advisors. Our 200 financial advisors, they're very different. Just like people in someone's family, we have some people who are fabulous public speakers. Public speaking is a good example. So my dad can get up in front of any crowd with no prompting and deliver a message that are going to bring people to tears. Mm-hmm. That's a gift, right? You see it, Other people, they couldn't do that in a million years. Some people look at a 50-page legal document and they will analyze it and give. My dad, for example, probably his eyes would glaze over, right? Mm-hmm. So following what you love doing, and we have advisors. I would say we have advisors who are really good up in front of people. We have advisors who are maybe more tacticians. They want to have an Excel. The way people even market and sell and work. Some people are using software programs. Some people are using the back of a yellow legal pad because it's more natural to them. I think the whole key in life for anybody, for my kids, for our financial advisors, for people we work with, is discover your talents, your unique gifts, and then how can you deliver them? And it's a tricky path, but when you find it and you see somebody who's in a role that they're really good at, it's great for them. It just flows. Absolutely. And you're grateful because that's a blessing when you find it, because you don't always find it. And then something will change. Yep. That's the other thing in life. The only constant is change. Mm-hmm. So then you're in a role, all of a sudden the role changes for some reason, and okay, but hopefully over the course of the years, you grow. Absolutely. You hear that a lot from older people, and I'm mid-50s. I'm at the stage of life where I've had a lot of experiences. You may not have the energy and the stamina and the strength you had when you're 25 years old, but you do get more wisdom because you've been through life experiences. Mm-hmm. And take my dad at 84, I'd say he's got another 30 more years of wisdom than I did. How do you deal with difficult people, difficult situations? How do you deal with successes? How do you deal with failures? That's a big part of life. But when you're 23, 24 years old, you're just trying to find your thing. When you're a new advisor going out, you got to find your niche. So going back to the advisors, we have advisors who only work with women, for example. That's their niche. Single women, divorcees, widows, wonderful market. We've got other advisors who just work with employees of a certain company. They help a single company have gotten a reputation as the retirement resource for that. You've got to find your niche, and you find your niche and you dig in and try to add value as long as you can. Yeah.
So this is a concept I talk about all the time. I want to get your thoughts on, of all work either works for you or works on you. And it goes back to Proverb 14, I think, where it's talking about in all labor there's profit. And so everything that you're doing is building up to what you'll ultimately be doing long term. And it's something in my life I can look back at each experience I had and I'm like, wow, that skill set that I learned there or that perspective that I gained there is applying to what I'm doing now. And it's leading up to what will ultimately be there. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of wisdom in that. There's concepts around things like growth mindset and fixed mindset. Mm-hmm. And there's a famous professor, I think her name is Carol Dweck, who wrote about growth mindset versus fixed mindset. The fixed mindset is, I'm not good at math. I'm never going to be good at math. I'm taking it as far as I can. The growth mindset, even when there's a setback, says, I struggled with this, but what can I learn about it? How can it lead me? How can I either get better? And so you're right. And even in someone's business in a particular year, if we take the strategy that there are no silver bullets and that we need to embrace failure, when you have something that doesn't work, you don't say that wasn't a failure, it was a learning opportunity. Yeah. What can I learn from that? I wasn't good at this, or I didn't do as well at this. What can I take away from it? And I was talking earlier about all these concepts in the society today around slowing down. Mm-hmm. There's a book out. I heard a podcast, a guy named Cal Newport, on slow productivity. The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. That book. Our society is always in a hurry. American culture, in particular, really puts a high priority on busyness, productivity, efficiency. It's all about rush, rush, rush. But how can you take a deep breath, and when something doesn't work or does work, and go back and say, what did I learn from that? Mm. And especially if it didn't work, if it works on you or works for you, as you said, how can I learn from this to slow down, evaluate what happened, what went well? And there are 100 opportunities every day for the people who slow down. Mm. It could, for example, we'll put on our national conventions. It'll be over 3 days. There'll be a lot of pieces that go into it. At the end of that, a week later, we say, okay, let's look back and say what went well, what didn't. We maybe tweak the schedule, have the speakers do a different this, different that. There's always something that you can look better. If you're egocentric, you'll get defensive.
Exactly.
But if you're more about how can we make this better, and it's a growth mindset, you're like, you can always make it better. So then take it down to an individual day. You have 30, 40, 50 different interactions. It could be at the water cooler. It could be at the grocery store. It could be on the phone with one of your kids. It could be how you respond to a text or an email. We know we all are impulsive now, right? We get a text, got to respond right back. Sometimes, let me think about this. What's the best way to deal with this situation? Mm-hmm. So life is full of learning experiences, full of them, all day, every day. If you just slow down to then say, okay, this was failure, this didn't go well, how can I learn from it and do better? Mm. So that's a mindset that I think, as people think about PEAK, the Tarkenton Financial PEAK system, P is for prospecting, E is for education, A is for assessment analysis like software tools, and K is for kinship. Mm. So let's break each of those down. Kinship, let's start at the back. Sure. Kinship, if you're an individual advisor, there's not a whole lot you can do, but we're trying to create events where people can come together. But what you can do, and I was just talking to people about this, we used to have small groups of advisors, and we may start them up again, where 3 or 4 advisors could just get together once a week and just talk about, hey, what are you doing? How's your week been? How do you track your success? What was a win? What was a loss? People have to talk to people, right? Most of our advisors are independent advisors. Look in your neighborhoods, look in society. Fewer people are out walking on the street, talking on the front porch. Everybody's in their house watching their shows, looking at their phone. So kinship, you could start that right there. Find a group of advisors you want to learn from, you want to talk to. A lot of people have Bible studies, men's groups, women's groups, whatever you have, kinship. But let's jump to the E in education. How can I get smarter about what I do? If you have a fixed mindset, you're like, I know everything there is to know. If you have a growth mindset, you're like, I can learn a lot more. So we've created these PEAK sales nugget videos, 3 to 5 minute videos. We're just starting to build them. Our top advisors are just sharing little concepts, little ideas, 3 to 5 minutes. Why do we do 3 to 5 minutes? because we know people's attention span is a lot shorter. 20 years ago when I started in this business, the internet wasn't what it was. Cell phones weren't what they were. It has been documented that our brains have changed. Our attention span is much shorter than it was.
For sure.
So doing a 30 to 45-minute webinar, most people are not going to make it. They might listen to it in the car, but what they want is short. So education, we're providing content, these peak sales nugget videos, where top advisors are just sharing what they do. Here's the way I introduce premium finance to my prospects. Just a couple questions I ask. Or here's how we talk about in-service withdrawals if somebody's reaching 59 and a half and if they're still working and want to tap into their 401k. Little things like that so people can be learning from other people. So again, going back to that peak system, there's so many opportunities to have a growth mindset and to grow. How can I get smarter in the E? Software tools. We were just looking at it yesterday internally. We have 4 or 5 software tools we use. Are they the right tools? How much do we pay for them? Are we getting a return on our investment? If we're not, are there other tools we can use out there to better serve our advisors? And by the way, things change. What you used 4 years ago might be different than what you want to use today.
Yeah.
So, and then last, P is what everybody thinks is the most important, prospecting. How are you getting in front of clients? How do you measure it? One thing, I'm a huge believer in systems and processes and in measuring everything we can. Mm-hmm. So in systems and processes, a few years ago, I worked with a nutritionist who helped me develop some healthy routines and rituals. What do you do when you wake up? What do you do? What do you eat for breakfast? Everybody has a late morning lull. You get hungry. How do you address that? Lunch, dinner, but even in our own, even on our own business, in business, what sort of systems do we have? Mm. So, for example, with prospecting, the best advisors they measure it. How many people did I meet with this week? I don't care if you met with 1 or 100. Just measure it. I met with 3 people. I had 4 meetings, 2 with clients, 2 with prospects. So next week, measure it again. Next week, measure it again. So at the end of the month, I met with 15 people, 7 were prospects, 8 were existing clients. So now measure it. And when you look back over time, over a year, you say, oh, January, February, March, really busy. It was slower in the summer. Oh, maybe that was because of the summer. You start to notice trends. Mm. What very few people do is measure stuff. And not from a failure success. Again, it doesn't need to be, but how do I get better? Mm-hmm. Now, we have goals for our sales. We have goals for how many new advisors we bring on. We have goals for how many advisors we have that are doing a certain amount of premium. But if we hit them or we don't, it doesn't really matter. It's just something to mark our progress. Are we making, and if we're not recruiting new advisors, okay, let's have a growth mindset. What can we do to recruit more advisors? Mm. What can we do differently? We're not going to ever, the fixed mindset is we're doing all we can do. There's nothing we can do. That's a dead end. Mm. But a growth mindset is like, okay, how can I get better at this? Mm. What can I do to get better? And again, it applies, you can look at it in your business over the course of a year. You can look at it in a week. So we have a peak sales nugget video from one of our top producers. He came in with us and was in the top 5 in his first year. Wow. And he has a certain number of people he wants to meet every day, every week. He has certain sales goals every month, every quarter. Now, he may not hit them. Honestly, they're pretty ambitious, but at least he has something there and he tracks it. Mm. And that in and of itself is a growth mentality.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. You said something that stood out to me previously about waking up in the morning and you have 1,000 things you can do or 100
yep.
things you can do throughout the day. I want you to talk generally and then specifically to advisors about managing their time, because you're talking about this peak concept that you have. Is that your filter that you look through everything, and how do you prioritize what to do first and when to do it and how to do it?
Yeah, well, I think a bigger question around peak, and I use this a lot, is what is your peak? So different people may have to, when you define what is your goal in a day, in a year, in a lifetime. For some people, it may be, I did 3 million of sales last year, I want to do 5 million this year. For some people, it may be, I want to add life insurance as part of my practice. For some people, it's maybe, I want to get securities licensed and add managed money. For other people, it may be, let's go specific for me. Like, I look at every week, every month, every quarter, every year, how do we grow our business? how do we expand our reach? And I literally think this way, how do I help all of my colleagues, people that I work with, how can I help them grow? Professionally, in terms of their skill set, and then financially, because I know that's important to them, it's important to everybody, but financially tends to follow, right? If we're doing the right thing, if the mission is business to help people, so
For sure.
I think it's important first that you define what is your peak, what is your goal, and it's different for different people. Some people are semi-retired. We have an advisor whose wife is ill, and he wants to spend more time with her. So it may not always be more sales, but by the way, he still has been on our top 10 in the last couple of years. He's doing $5, $7, and $10 million of production while he's spending 50% or more of his time caring for his dear beloved wife who's had a form of Parkinson's. But that's his peak, is to spend more time with her because he didn't know how much time he's going to have. So the first thing is to define what your peak is. And you talk about specifically when I wake up in the morning, everybody's different. Some people, you watch Myers-Briggs and other personality testing. Some people have a roadmap of what their day is going to look like, and some people just take it like it comes. It may be different on a Monday morning from a Saturday morning. Most people on Saturday just want to take it as it comes. But I have built systems and processes into my day. So when I wake up, I do the same types of things. I tend to get to work at the same time. A really great book, there's The Power of Habit. There's another book about atomic habits. Similar concepts. 40 to 50% of what we do every day is on autopilot. Our brain wants to form habits because by forming habits that are just subconscious, we don't have to think about it. So what we do when we wake up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you wash your face, you do push-ups, sit-ups, whatever you do, the longer you do that, the more the neural pathways get ingrained that this is what I do. That's why people I got to take a smoke break at 10 o'clock every morning, they go outside and they take a smoke break because that's what they've done for 100 years. And so it's hard to break those neural pathways. So when you're trying to establish a new habit, it's hard to do that, but research will show 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever, to establish a new habit. But if you have positive habits, it becomes a superpower. And if you have negative habits, it becomes destructive. So we have all seen people in our lifetime who things start going wrong, they start struggling, they deal with stress, maybe want to start drinking a little bit, maybe I'm going to slippery slope, and they're going to go down a negative pathway. So I would say generally I wake up in the morning, not always, we all have bad days, but how can I make this a successful day? What is my goal in this day? Maybe it's to exercise. So for example, when you get over 50, Hunter, I try to exercise 5 or 6 days a week. It could be a 15-minute walk. It could be go to the Y for 30 minutes. It could go do a Pilates class. But I want to have that habit of moving. People want to move their mind. Some people wake up and they do a Sudoku puzzle, right? I want to get my mind moving. That's one thing I'll say I've seen with my dad is he's 84 years old. He's active, using his mind. He always says if he didn't have work, I don't know what he would do. It keeps him young. It keeps him around young people. He's not working 80 hours a week and he's not digging ditches. But the habits that you establish on a daily basis, and it really comes down to that daily, hourly, minute-wise. We have choices every day. How we, for example, mid-afternoon, I'll have a cup of tea often, just as a kind of refresh. Could be a cup of coffee. Probably better not to have a chocolate cake, right? So if you can start to fill yourself with an apple instead of a chocolate cake, it fuels you with positive energy. And how am I going to have more energy to help serve others? So life is just a fascinating discovery experience about yourself and about others. And how can I be better? But the most important thing is that people define what does a peak mean to me? What does reaching a higher level of performance mean? And it's not always quantitative. It's not always, as I said, it's not always higher sales. It often is. But maybe it's hiring a new employee, bringing somebody on so that I can pass off the administrative stuff, so that I can focus. That's a really hard thing. And our employees struggle with that. How do I delegate in a way that I don't have to worry about it? I can pass this off, know that it's being done. We all struggle with that. You want to do stuff, but maybe that's your peak, hiring more people so you can focus on higher value activities. So.
It's funny you went there because I was about to ask about habits and daily disciplines. But when I hear you talk about peak, what I'm seeing is it's the end goal, right? And then you work backwards from that end goal and say, what habits do I need to put in place to get me there? And it's something that compounds consistently over time, right? But it's like going back and prioritizing, okay, what do I need to change first? How do I address it and implement something better than what I was doing before? And I mean, just going back to advisors specifically, how do they go about prioritizing what habits they need to implement first? Is it about your exercise and the basic habits, or is it more of like prospecting? Is it more about education, like the actual peak items? What's your opinion on that?
Well, so I think for an advisor, every sales book out there talks about activity, measuring activity. Don't focus on, John Wooden, the famous UCLA basketball coach, said, don't look at the scoreboard, look at what activity, the next play. Bill Belichick used to talk about just focus on the next play. Don't worry about if you're getting a touchdown or whatever. So, but you got a game, you want to win in the sports, but so it's a little bit of a balancing act. But again, I think the first thing is for people to think about, in the next, we just started a new quarter. What is my goal for the next quarter? Or the year, or whatever. But I think it should be activity based. Mm-hmm. So, how many people do I want to talk to this week? How many calls do I want to make to existing clients? How many new prospects do I want to meet? Just that. So let's say, for example, I want to call 2 clients a day just to check in on them. 2 clients a day. That's 10 a week. That's 40 a month, and that's 480 in a year. Now you may say, well, I only have 50 clients. So you may have to modify. You got to figure out what is your goal. A lot of people, what they do is they say, I'm going to take my existing clients. I have 2 buckets. I have my existing clients and I have my prospects. If I'm an advisor, that's how I would divide my day. Mm-hmm. So if I have 50 existing clients, maybe I'm going to tier them. A-rated, B-rated, C-rated, based on how many assets they have, some measure of how important they are to you. So your A clients, you may say, I want to talk to them at least once a month. My B clients, I want to talk to at least once a quarter. And my C clients, I want to talk to them at least twice a year. So I would create a framework for your existing clients. And then let's say of your 50, you've got 20 that are A. Say, I'm going to talk to those people once a month. So that means about once a day I should be talking to one. You create some system. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but some of our folks will just have a list of all their clients, and they'll just check them off as they talk. I'm just checking in with you once a quarter, once a month, twice a year, whatever. Then you have for your prospects. How am I getting in front of new people? Because if I'm going to grow my business, I've got to turn some prospects into clients, right? So how am I going to get in front of prospects, and how many prospects are in my database? Mm-hmm. First thing is how am I going to get prospect names? Some of it may be through referrals. So how can I try to get a certain number of referrals? Maybe it's I want to ask for 1 referral a week from an existing client. Hey, if you have anybody you think might be, I'd love to meet them. But referrals are the primary way that people grow their business. So I think you need to have some mindset about how am I going to approach referrals. Mm-hmm. Some people have events, client appreciation events. They'll host events and invite people to bring a guest. It might be a Thanksgiving-themed event, a holiday-themed event, a midsummer picnic. But putting that on the calendar, I've got to be intentional about how I want to get prospects. Referrals, and think about referrals and be intentional about that. It may be conducting educational programs. For 20 years, we have been leaders in educational-based seminars. Mm. They used to be associated with a dinner seminar. Fewer and fewer people are doing those, but now people are doing these educational events at colleges, universities, and libraries, and there's programs, and we have programs people can do that. So maybe you say, I'm going to do 1 of those a quarter. You know that those are going to cost maybe whatever they're going to cost, $5,000, $3,000, whatever the number is. So you have in your mindset, I'm going to do 1 of these a quarter. That's going to be a certain amount. I'm going to do maybe 1 client appreciation event. So you have a thought around, this is going to be my marketing budget for the year. Mm-hmm. And that number may be $25,000, $30,000, $10,000, $5,000. We have people who do radio programs that are spending $12,000, $15,000 a month on radio. So it just varies. So it's important that people step back and think about in the next quarter, in the next 6 months, in the next year, how am I going to approach my clients and prospects in terms of what are my goals? And then how am I going to measure that? And this can sound complicated, but when you put it out on a piece of paper, you can really simplify it and just keep track of it and see where you are and see what's working. And again, have a growth mindset, not a fixed mindset. If I don't, so for example, in our business, we're trying to find new advisors that we can work with. We used to have a program, we just buy lists of names and cold call them, and we weren't very good at that. There are firms that are really good at that. They have people that will just pound the phone and make $100 a day. So we host events in our office. We go to conferences and we sponsor events. We leverage Dad. Dad will speak at events. Dad will do talks. So we've discovered what works for us based on the skill set of our people. So it's a blend of being very intentional about your existing clients and your prospects, and then creating systems. And so again, going back to weekly, daily, maybe I'm calling one client a day or 2 clients a week, or whatever it is. I'm doing 1 event per quarter. And then at your event, let's take your event, by the way, measure that. How many people came to the event? How many people, how much did I spend? So if you spend, let's take $5,000 because it's a round number, and you get 50 people at that event, you're spending $100 per person to get them there. How many appointments do you get? How many sales do you make? You can measure everything. Again, not in a way to say this was a failure or success, but what can I learn from it? I'm really good. Some people are great at events. They can get up in front of people. Some people just struggle with it. So if you struggle with it, find another niche. Small groups. There's so much to learn, but the important thing is to have a goal, have a plan. One of Dad's favorite sayings was from T. Boone Pickens: "An idiot with a plan can outsmart a genius with no plan." Ooh. But most advisors don't have a plan. They don't have a plan for how are they going to grow and what are their goals. So that's really important, I think.
Man, that's awesome. And going back, so say you have a plan in place and you're trying to create these habits. And one of the things you talk about all the time is consistency. So I want you to kind of go a little bit deeper in the importance of consistency, no matter what you're doing, because you could do it once or twice and not see results, get discouraged. But talk about pushing through that and being consistent anyway.
I'm going to borrow from a video that's 5 or 7 minute video from Simon Sinek, who is a great speaker. If you've seen him, he's all over the internet. It'll probably pop up in your feed tonight. I can send it to anybody. And he talks about consistency. And he talks about it in 3 components: in health, in relationships, and in business. And he said, you can go to the gym 3 days a week, this week, next week, week after, and you look and say, I don't see much of a difference. It's only by doing things consistently after 3 months, 6 months, you might start to notice a difference. Hey, I'm feeling better. I've got more energy. I've lost some weight. I'm seeing some more tone. It's only by doing it consistently. And it's, if you go to and by the way, in a given week, you could go to the gym once a week for 3 hours, or you could go 5 days a week for 20 minutes. You get a lot more out of the latter, going 5 days a week for 20 minutes instead of one day a week for longer. In relationships, and this is straight off Simon Sinek's video, so all credit to him. You can give your wife flowers on Christmas, birthdays, anniversaries, send them gifts on those special days. But a deep, lasting love is a daily thing. It's unloading the dishwasher. It's giving them a kiss when you get home. It's asking them how their day was. It's consistency. It's doing it every day. The last piece on leadership, and I preach this to our team all the time, you can go get a certificate from the Harvard Business School Education Exec Ed. You can take an online class. Leadership is every day. And you can be a leader and, hey, I'm going to take the initiative to get this done. I'm going to call this person and get back with the answer. I'm not going to blame. I'm going to go find a solution, not a problem. The world is full of people who are just, this doesn't work. I didn't like this. They're just finding problems. The winners are the solution. I'm going to find a solution. We had an issue come up yesterday where we were trying to clarify a policy by one of our insurance carriers. And one of my colleagues said, I'm going to take the initiative to reach out to them, explain the situation, and get the answer. Amen. That's wonderful. Finding solutions, not problems. So
good.
Going back, leadership is a daily thing. And Simon Sinek gives other examples. The examples are everywhere. If you just go to the dentist twice a year, your teeth will fall out. It's the exercise of brushing your teeth every day, twice a day. Most dentists will tell you that flossing is actually more important than brushing your teeth. But flossing is an example in that power of habits. They talk about keystone habits, little habits that set off other habits. So exercise is one. If you exercise, now I'm going to go probably have a salad instead of having a baked potato, and I'm going to so flossing is a good example. It's a tiny little thing. I don't know what percentage of the people do floss, but if you floss, your trips to the dentist will be a lot easier. If you floss every day, it'll be your teeth will be in much better shape. If you just floss twice a year, your dentist will see it right away. It's the daily consistency of activities. So trying to think about in your day, from a personal standpoint, what do I eat? What do I exercise? What do I do around to your business? What time do I get in? What are the first things I do? How do I prioritize it? How do I prioritize clients and prospects? An area we all have to improve is we all get interrupted, right? We can have these grand plans, and then somebody calls, there's a fire drill, something goes wrong, there's an emergency. How do I deal with that, address it, and then try to refocus on whatever my goals for the day are? Another famous book, it's called Margin. Building enough margin into your life. So if I have a meeting at 9 and at 10 and at 11, I got lunch at 12, meeting at 1, 2, 3, I'm going to the gym at 4, home at 5, dinner at 6. There's no space in between. You've got to create space, going back to slowing down, not being so hurried. It's the same thing financially. If your budget's here and your income's here and your budget's here, there's no margin for error. I'm going to get a flat tire. The ice maker's going to break. The air conditioner's going to go out. You've got to create financial margin so that if something goes wrong, you can deal with it. And the same way in your personal life. You got to say, hey, I'm going to leave the 10 to 11 o'clock hour free so I can respond to emails or deal with stuff that's come up. So there's so many little things we can do. And again, you don't know this when you're 22 years old. Maybe my dad at 84 does know it, but learning from others, learning others' good habits, going back to the maxims, people have to talk to people. We learn by talking to other people. And we learn a lot on social media now. It's interesting. There's a lot of negative on social media. Yeah. I have found, somebody suggested to me that I cultivate an Instagram feed that delivers to me what I find value in.
Yep.
And so it may be spiritual, it may be health and wellness, it may be personal growth. For me, it's probably not the cat videos. I know for a lot of people it is. They want humor or whatever, gardening, cooking, whatever. But you can cultivate. The information we have available to us now is unbelievable.
It's mind-blowing.
Yeah, how we can eat better, exercise better, think better, grow our businesses. It's amazing. People 50 years ago didn't have access to these videos of great thinkers. There were great thinkers in that time, but they wrote books. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Dale Carnegie. It's one of the most famous books ever. I have read it, but he didn't have the benefit of being able to put it on social media in bite-sized pieces. And also going back to the shorter videos and the shorter content, we all can only digest so much at a time. The best way to consume anything is slowly. Ask all the nutritionists, slowing down, eat your meals. If you get 4 hours of content, it's going to overwhelm you, but get 5 or 10 minutes a day. Let that build. That's what Instagram does provide, is a learning platform, if you cultivate it the right way. Now, we all get tied going off on some rabbit hole with old high school friends or whatever, but it's just like anything. If you harness it to work for you, as opposed to becoming addictive, which it does for a lot of people.
Wow. We've hit on a lot of great things, and I appreciate your time and your wisdom that you've gained over the years of your effort and consistently showing up every day. So I want to wrap it up by just giving 1 to 2 practical pieces of advice for advisors of things they can implement to shift the direction they're going or continue to grow their business.
You have to find ways to get in front of people. If you want to grow your clients, you have to find ways to get in front of people. We cannot be expected to know all things. So I think finding a partner, and obviously at Tarkenton Financial, we believe we're a very good partner, to help people understand how can I get in front of more people to hopefully grow my business. So that may be through doing educational events. It may be social media marketing. It may be other client appreciation events. But you have to find ways to get in front of people. This is an unusual, practical suggestion. You have to find partners you trust. Our industry is full of advisors who jump from FMO to FMO to FMO because there's always a better deal. These people have this. There's a silver bullet around every corner. There is an attractive girl at every beach or whatever. But you find a partner that you trust, like a spouse that you love, and just embrace it and recognize that nobody's perfect. The problem is in society today, we expect others to be perfect. And no, it's not always going to work. Failure, you learn more from failure, losing than winning. My dad talks about it all the time. So recognize I may do an educational event and it may be a rousing success. We have an advisor who just had 14 couples at an event and they set 12 appointments. That's a home run. 12 appointments out of 14 people that were there. Other times people have 14 people there and they'll get a goose egg. Sometimes it's out of your control. But not trying to always chase the silver bullet. And a lot of times people do that because I'm not going to. So one of the things you've told us about social media is you need to stay at it. You need to keep it out there so people, they see the brand. Okay, I see this over and over and over again. And we live in this get rich quick or silver bullet type of thing. There's not a silver bullet. I'll tell you, our top advisor does the same thing he's been doing for 25 years. And it's built over time. And tens of millions of dollars of premium, but more importantly, he would say tens of hundreds, if not thousands of people that he is helping. So practical advice, things that are practical, I would find ways to get in front of more people and to measure it and to have a growth mentality to say what's working, what's not, and what caters to my unique talents and abilities. Important. Second, find a partner that you can really trust. And that's not only an FMO, but I think what's unique to Tarkenton Financial, talk to your peers because they're out there doing it every day. I'm not out there every day. But we know people who are, and we've attracted a group that want to help other people because they've heard us talk about the mission of businesses to help people. So find partners, whether it's IMOs or peers that you can trust and build your team. You watch all these pro tennis players at Wimbledon, golfers, they're standing out there hoisting up the trophy. They all talk about their teams, every one of them. I got a swing coach, I got a mental coach, I got a nutrition coach, my spouse, my kids. At Wimbledon, it's the whole box. It's their team. Independent advisors and in American society, we celebrate the self-made man, right? Self-made man normally has a lot of people supporting him, the true success stories. So find ways to get in front of people, build your team, and trust your team. And especially make sure that their mission is to help people. Because again, there's a number of people out there that are just trying to sell their pills and potions, the network marketing, the whatever, programs are trying to sell their program. And I get it, everybody's got to make a living. But if your mission is truly to help people and you've helped people, it'll bear fruit. So that's what I would say.
Love it. Thanks, Matt.
All right, good.
Love it.
Here we go.
Oh, that was so good.